Dave pulled into the parking lot just as the sun rose over the mountain top. He parked his truck and sat with the engine off for a moment. Dave was nervous. This was not like any job he had done before. He took one last deep breath before getting out of the car and collecting his gear. He gathered his tools and began the long trek up the mountain. "This is my opportunity. I need to do this," Dave said to himself as he reached the halfway point of his march up the mountain. The weight of his gear was really hurting Dave's back, but he knew there was no turning back. Ever since his accident, back pain was a daily part of life that he had adjusted to. Dave had been off of work for so long that he knew this was his last chance to get his job back. Dave stopped for a second to catch his breath. He thought about the task in front of him. A long-forgotten job for an almost-forgotten worker. In the past, Dave had been one of the top lumberjacks for his company. He was continuously outperforming his co-workers. But after the accidents, he hadn't been the same. Dave returned to work with almost no issue after a falling tree limb struck him, but none of his co-workers expected him to return to work after the fall. While securing a tree 50 feet above ground, Dave had lost his balance as his safety gear failed. No one thought he would survive that fall, and especially no one imagined he would return to work just months later. But here, Dave was, on his last chance job in an effort to keep his employment. He had been unable to perform his job at a good pace, and his superiors had taken notice. Dave had the sense he could be one mistake away from losing his job. The pressure was on, and Dave knew there was no room for error. Dave drank some water while he checked his phone. He noticed a text from his boss reading, "You may as well not come back if you can't get this done." This text was a dagger to Dave. He hated his slower pace of work more than anyone else. He wanted to get rid of the consistent feeling of judgment and disappointment he sensed from his co-workers. Dave put his phone away and continued to the peak of the mountain. When he reached the top, Dave surveyed the trees that he needed to remove and set up his gear near his first target. A tall, vast oak tree stood in front of Dave. A tree that would be daunting to most, but Dave had tacked many before. He felt confident, but he knew he needed to be careful. After limping the tree, Dave set up his gear in order to begin cutting the base down. Dave picked up his chainsaw and took a deep breath. He said out loud, "I've got this," and fired up his chainsaw. He placed his earmuffs on and began cutting into the base of the oak tree. Dave pushed through his aching back pain and put all his body weight into supporting the saw. He removed the saw from the tree and cut the power. Dave knew he had to be careful to not cut too deep and cause the tree to give way. Dave placed his saw down and stepped away from the tree. He caught his breath as he removed his earmuffs. He picked up his water bottle to take a sip as he heard a large snap of something. Before he could react, the oak tree fell and landed right on Dave's midsection, pinned him to the hard dirt ground below. As he gasped for air, Dave frantically searched for his cell phone, but could not reach it through the tree. He could only assume that the weight of the tree had crushed it already, along with the rest of his waistline. As Dave took his final breaths, he began to fade. His life began to flash before him. A work-centered man, Dave had invested his life into his career. This strained his personal relationships and caused him to have been isolated from his family for years. The lonely washed over him, all the nights after work spent alone, all the days recovering from his injuries, with no help from friends or family. Dave wept as he let out his final gasp. As his chest compressed, the tree rolled over Dave, finishing him off, as his upper body was crushed by the tree. Dave's boss believed he had taken his text literally and only grew concerned after he had stopped by his house to make sure he received his final check. His boss didn't know that a day earlier, a hiker had discovered the bottom of Dave's body while hiking the makeshift trail that Dave cut through days before. His co-workers found out when they were called to help remove the tree from Dave's head. They hosted a small funeral, which was attended by all work colleagues. Through all the sadness, people thought, it's sort of fitting he died alone. That was the only life he knew.